Hey everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a 6-game NBA slate. Before I get started, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? Hope everybody has done well this week. So far, we've been absolutely phenomenal in NBA and in college basketball. I'm not going to be doing a college basketball breakdown today. I don't have time, but we have been doing pretty well. Showdowns have been really solid for both NBA and for college basketball this week, so let's keep that up. So let's go and get into this NBA slate. So we have a pretty good injury report today with the Clippers. Zubac is out and George is questionable for the Celtics. Porzingis looks like he's going to be out. For the Hornets, Williams, Hayward, and Lowry are out. For the Pelicans, Murphy is doubtful, and for the Bucks, Middleton and Crowder are doubtful. For the Spurs, Jones is questionable, and Barlow is out. For the Lakers, LeBron and Davis are questionable. Reddish and Vincent are out. For the Warriors, Chris Paul is out. Moody and Payton are both out as well. And for the Mavericks, Kyrie Irving is questionable, and Jones is questionable. So we can definitely open up some value if some of these guys get ruled out, but we'll have to wait and see on that. For now, I do have some core plays. I have two in Sabonis and Russell. I have two other guys I think are very viable options, and we're borderline in core plays as well, but we'll start with Russell. D'Angelo has played very well since returning to the starting lineup. In 6 of the last 7 games, he's been over 34 fantasy points. He's playing very well, and he'd even get a bigger boost if LeBron or Davis were to be ruled out. That always does give him somewhat of a boost, but he's playing really well right now, and he's hard to ignore, especially in a plus matchup from a defensive perspective with a high-scoring game. There's actually only one game that's pretty low-scoring on this slate, which is the Minnesota Spurs game, so that's going to be a game that's relatively easy to avoid today, but there are some GPP plays available from that game. Looking at Sabonis here for Sacramento, he also has been playing extremely well. In 15 out of the last 17 games, he's been over 49 fantasy points, and he's got a very, very favorable matchup here against the Mavericks, who are putting up massive numbers, but also giving up massive numbers defensively. So I look for him to have another really solid game. The last time he played them, he had 58 fantasy points. I expect a similar result here. He's been just fantastic lately, so he's definitely a great option on the slate. Another guy we can consider today is Giannis, though he obviously because he had absolutely monster games the last few games, but he's had some big games throughout the year. Obviously, this matchup is favorable for him, and he's going to have an easier role here since he's had 2 games against Cleveland. So I expect him to have a huge game in this one, assuming he plays normal minutes. So he has been getting a lot of fouls the last few games, so do keep that in mind. I also like Draymond Green a lot today. I really thought about making a core play, but I decided not to, only because he's only played 2 games since being back from suspension. But his price is a little bit too cheap here for his potential upside, as he can get 40 fantasy points on a whim. And he has that double-double potential with the rebounds and assists. He didn't always get the points, but he definitely has that opportunity with the assists and rebounds. So especially with Chris Paul out, he's going to have a little bit more assist potential, and that definitely gives him some upside here. Then we're going to get into some other plays that I do like, but they definitely fall into the GPP category. Mike Conley being one. He's played pretty solid, but inconsistent. But he has a high floor. He has a high ceiling, which he's been hitting quite a few times recently, and that definitely gives him some upside at this price point because he needs 26.5 points to pay off here. Though obviously he has had some slow games, and this is a slow down game, so there's definitely some risk to it. But he definitely has some upside in this matchup. Looking at Tatum for Boston, he's played pretty well lately, though he has that random low game as well, especially because he has to share a ball with a lot of guys. But with Porzingis out, that should give him a little bit more usage, though he does take a lot of shots anyway and has a lot of high scoring potential. If he can get the rebounds, then he'll definitely pay off on the slate. But he does carry a little bit of risk here. He's a little bit pricey. Looking at Rudy Gobert for the Minnesota Timberwolves, he's been playing pretty well. He definitely has a favorable matchup here at Spurs. He's managed some really good games lately, but he's also had a couple of floor games. But that said, he's a little bit too cheap for his potential here, and he's been solid against the Spurs this season, so I think he's a viable option on the slate. Then we're going to look at Naz Reid for Minnesota as well. He's played pretty good in his limited minutes, though he's been a little bit inconsistent the last 3 games. Part of that is just the minutes there, but I do think he has that upside at just only needing 21 fantasy points. However, he does have that low floor, so he's squarely a GPP play here. Looking at Grant Williams, he's dirt cheap today. His price has come down because his play has been pretty erratic. That said, he does have some decent upside to get into the mid-20s. He's just been inconsistent, especially with his minutes being inconsistent. But if this game does have a high total, and I suspect this game will be a lot of back and forth, high scoring game. That's going to give him a little bit more opportunity to get a few more minutes and a few more rebounds and assists. So I think he does draw some potential in this one. Again, he definitely feels like a GPP play. Looking at Luka Doncic for Dallas, he absolutely had a monster game yesterday with 73 points. He almost got a triple double too. He scored 101 fantasy points. He's capable of this all the time. Sometimes I definitely caution against going with a guy who just did that the day before. Sometimes there can be a a return to reality game next, but he's still got a very favorable matchup here against Sacramento, and I think he's going to have a pretty big game regardless. So I expect him to be able to pay off on the slate, but he definitely carries more risk due to his price. Looking at Kuminga for Golden State Warriors, it's kind of surprising, but he's been pretty consistent recently. And his last 6 or 7 games, he's been really solid since going to the bench and having Green back and having a couple other guys back from injuries. His minutes have been consistent right around 30, and he's scoring a lot of fantasy points, getting a lot of buckets, easy baskets, and that. If he can continue this, then he's definitely going to be a viable option going forward. But it's a little, he hadn't been this consistent for a long time, so I expect him to be an interesting play, but he definitely feels like a GPP play because, he could have a floor game. Then we're going to look at Huter for Sacramento. Now, he has been very inconsistent throughout his career, but he definitely has big-time upside, and he's had some big-time games recently with 3 games over 38 fantasy points the last 5. His minutes are high right now. Monk hasn't been playing as well, so it's giving him more opportunity, and he looks like he's playing pretty solid right now. This should be a high-scoring game again here against Dallas, so I expect him to have an opportunity at least. With that said, he's got to hit the shots to really pay off here, but he is capable of it, so he's interesting as a GPP play here. With that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below, and have a nice day, guys.